And would you please give a warm welcome to Friday Gretchen?
So nice. Thank you. Okay. So nice. Now I know not to touch the mic. Thank you so much for being here. My gosh, beautiful. Thank you. You all are. I am Jennifer Kelly, a poet that we all know and love, requested that I do poems about my dad. So this is going to be a very focused reading. My mom is here. And Dad died almost 5 years ago now. But my reading is going to be in a chronological sort of order. Obviously, I didn't include my whole life, so I try to pick up somewhere and then carry on till the end. So I'm going to begin here. This is called After the Helicopter Landed at the Hospital. Though absent in those minutes that sped past like dust clouds kicked up by a stranger's motorcycle, and the quick hooves of my horse spooked. Despite an urge to drop to the tile floor unconscious, you stayed for hours in a gray and white room, near enough to hold my hand, my bloodied body draped in paper cloth. A vasovagal response made your knees buckle, all while smaller stones, plucked from swollen ribbons of flesh, sounded like bells when they dropped into the steel tray. You weren't strong like that, but pretended to be, long enough to provide comfort while my wounds were being cleaned. This one is in the book. It's called My Father Creates a 15-Year-Old Adult. And it changed today, this poem. I have begun it now with a quote. And it's in my father's voice. I love you because I have to, but I don't like you. You who slinks about our quiet house in skirts far above your knee, form-fitting tops and an overdose of exposed skin. I've worked many hours to afford you the leisure of twirling straight hair about your long fingers in daydreams, accented by violent pops of bubblegum, attaching and detaching itself from expensive dental artistry. Your bedroom, distant down the hallway, smells of clove cigarettes and perfume, Aquanet and pheromones of boys. I never enter there unless to wake you in the late afternoon with a bucket of water. Your last report card brought me to the ground, wondering what I'd done so perfectly with my first daughter and so poorly with you, second child, that I must turn you over to the street and hope for the best possible outcome. I imagine your stockings, slight skirts, and fingers cocooned in auburn hair should help you make friends there. Now you are laughing, but some of you who know me know I was a stinker. This is when things have started to change. There's not a diagnosis, but this is when things have started to change. This is called the captain's 77th year. I refer to Dad as Dad, Captain, Father. He flew for United Airlines, but you'll learn some things as we go. The captain's 77th year. You are as aware of the urge springing you from warm sheets, sleeping dogs, and your marble-sized wife of over 50 years as you are of the desire to ignore it. Though you may as well rise now, because the sun is just below the horizon, And you know both small dogs will leap at the first sound of cockadoodle-doings, the murmur of morning warblers, and the bright chirp of an indignant towhee, alerting all of the world that it is spring and it's time to make some baby birds. So you do rise. Though different than it once was, simply getting to the toilet without light requires an attentiveness it never had before. And your body's response to elimination, a fresh weakness causing you to lean against the wall behind the commode for stability. Could you be dizzy? Could you feel weaker than this moment? Of course it's best to stay up. Begin the grind that is a day in your life as an aged man, the one who knew old had arrived once he reached the prior speed limit of 55. You have been master of this home, the manicured half-acre upon which it sits, the pear, persimmon, pomegranate, the kumquat, apple, and lime, the hens who produced eggs for your family, the horse who sent your youngest to the hospital in a helicopter, the swimming pool, jacuzzi, and every pet who has called this family home. You have flown these broad skies, safely delivered human beings to destinations, all with that explorer's curiosity, just like your own dad. You taught your daughters compassion and grace, clutch, brake, and flywheel, how to replace a catalytic converter so they'd never be reliant on a man or the kindness of a stranger. You taught them to covet credit and manage money, understand stocks, security, savings. Your wife is still sweet on you. She's been here with her love and is resolved to ensuring your comfort and safety during your flight beyond this old world. Mom was a flight attendant, so yeah, she really did manage those things. Okay, now he sleeps with his mouth open. I stroke my dad's forearm, ruffled with coarse silver hair over scabs from persistent skin cancer treatments, though this is not what ails him. A small senile terrier lies between his narrowing thigh and the arm of his mechanical booster chair. Coming into and out of consciousness, Dad's mouth drops open like a baby bird. I breathe shallowly to avoid sobbing, but that never works. He opens his eyes, turns to me and says, "Don't cry, honey." Now a diagnosis has occurred, and I wrote this poem sort of as if Dad was speaking to us, sort of giving us instructions, giving us a manual of how to work with things as they are. This is called Instructions for My Survival. When saliva, thick as pureed peas, gathers in the hollow of my throat, forbids a reflexive breath, brings inhalation to a standstill behind deflated lungs, there will be an expression, a pallor. Watch for this. Listen, a sound not unlike a hushed whisper, wind through weeds. Do not dilly-dally. Send aid to stand me up. My weary bones tremble and sway either way. Hold absorbent cloths beneath my flushed lips and inspire expectoration. Another thing this run-down larynx can no longer deliver. Maintain my mouth wide tip my dusky grimace to the ground, create empty space and wait for blushing breath to return. I know it's heavy, it's hard. Thank you. This one is pretty formative. It's called Dad's Left Hand, and there was a ring that was lacking. There was a ring that was lacking and a wife that was steadily there. So anyway, this is Dad's left hand. Over white ceramic plates of pork loin perfectly prepared, Mom let us know about it. She pointed across our table to the captain's ring finger in anger. Chewing on one side of his mouth, he pointed back at his loving wife. Time and 2 children later, her fleshy body sat ample in her chair, different than the dainty young woman he'd married 15 years earlier. It was then that I learned that love is not blind or unconditional. After my 7th grade suicide note, the 3 of us met the therapist. At the end, when little had been determined, Dad pointed across the table at Marge and said, "Why should we take your help? You can't even manage your own figure." I learned then that respect and size were correlated. Today, the captain is frail. In this room he doesn't own, his mind and body betray him. Parched mouth remains yawning, unengaged eyes gaze fixedly. Sometimes Mom says she can see them smile. Sits low, bedside bars, strokes his arm and keeps from crying. Dad's hand more recently displayed a needle carrying fluids to sustain life. Still no golden band of promise. When he dies, I will sneak it into the left pocket of his very best trousers. Painting Rocks with Dad, where I used to cry doing math homework. There's a title. Much like he would to a silent bird after it struck our glass doors, Dad cradles the flat stone tenderly in his hand, examines each crease and rounded edge with care to better understand his canvas. With his gently rocking hand, he lifts a skinny paintbrush from the table, dips it into the verdant dollop on the palette, and slides along a granite surface, leaving behind a wavy patch of green. The captain is quiet. He sets down the freshly adorned stone to take a sip of water, slightly thickened, to ensure he doesn't choke, and returns to his craft. We listen to the music he loves while we create together. A smile unbuttons my lips, warmed by his joyful concentration. Words don't seem to matter anymore. Thank you. This one, a few of you, I'm sure, have heard. It is called The Wind. It's a little bit longer of a poem. It takes us through several periods of life, but the one thing that sort of remains a constant through the story, through the poem, is the wind. And this is when Dad is in a rehab facility. I don't think I needed to say that, but there you go. The wind has not yet taken him, but it's here. It lingers and blows through wet leaves and blooms that dangle precariously from each branch, dancing twitchy like the tail of a cat. I have found myself unmovable by the bright mirror of a dark leaf flashing. It warns me like reflective ties used by croppers to keep winged thieves away. Gusts roar over oceans, create curls of crashing wetness, that have knocked me down and crushed my pretty face in the sand. Waves left me 13, scraped, stinging, attempting to stand unknowingly naked on the shore of a crowded beach in Waikiki. After counting moments I'd been missing from view, Dad rushed to me in the shallows as I bent to catch my breath, entirely topless with an electric blue bikini bottom twisted worthless around one ankle. That was the fault of the wind. The decades he spent shuttling travelers around this world in a jumbo aircraft that responded to thrust, lift, weight, and drag, even though he preferred to glide. Never minded the tugging to tow him above clouds. Once released, the captain burned daylight. No fear of fuel deficiency, just him sailing the silent sky. We soared together, single row seats stacked in the slender cockpit, Dad's floppy hat and pink neck at the helm. When the ride couldn't end, he would clasp my ankle to say, "Hold on," and we'd dip the long left wing like a pole vault, straight down to earth, and twist ourselves to mimic a tornado, until the current would catch. And instead of diving in a deep spin toward the ground that would surely obliterate us, we were lifted higher over the desert floor, beyond mountains and alluvial fans that line their edge. Now, wind rewards me only in its presence to my chimes. Devil winds assist wildfires, knock blooms from my pear tree, upset the balance of barometric pressure and split my head like cordwood. But these that could lift him further from this realm, where he thins, broad-eyed and mouth agape, it does no harm. Not even curious about him, just blows. I just have a few left, and none of them are nearly as long as that. This one is called Sonic Boom. It's called Sonic Boom. When you were a bottle cap toting 8-year-old boy, playing with your short-legged dachshund Wrinkles, Chuck Yeager, at 23 years of age, pulled a daredevil move and climbed from one ascending aircraft into another over the Mojave Desert. Reaching 700 miles per hour and 43,000 feet, the dry lake beds shook as reverberations from the first ever sonic boom made him the most famous test pilot for generations. Dad, one of your heroes died today. He wasn't shot from the sky by enemy fire in a world war, or torn apart by shock waves while breaking the speed of sound. He inhaled oxygen one last time and leapt toward a cloud. Okay, last one. 2-poem warning. We have begun hospice. This poem is titled Walls with No Clock or Crucifix. 3 days in, Dad lies tranquilly on his side, propped up with multiple pillows and cradled by a mattress like a shifting cloud that inflates and deflates to keep sores away. He wears a cotton shirt that's been cut end to end, wrapped around his narrowed chest and arms like a backward cardigan. Not a bite to eat, not a sip of water. Ointment applied to his cracked lips make them shiny. He breathes without assistance and keeps his eyes snugly shut until nurses lift his body to change him and face him toward the blank wall. They shut the door before proceeding, as this is when peace leaves the room, when the reality of his body, still not free of the man, shares its distaste of things as they are, and chokes and grumbles until lung contents have settled. Peeking through a 1-inch crack in the door, I saw his blanketed body, its alabaster paleness, as they lifted the sheet in unison and allowed it to billow down over him. I catch a glimpse of his Jesus legs, as Mom always called them, and am reminded of Dad's humility and tenderness. Entering his room despite the help, I draw back the sheet from his toes to his thighs and cry like Mary holding her child's limp body. And finally, this is ribbons. The eucalyptus trees remind me of you. The way your skin, riddled with spots of many colors, would slough off or peel away, leaving behind a fresh pink hide. The vulnerability of you, limited bark to cover your trunk, and that which remained marred and knitted into coarse gray hairs. Thank you guys for taking the time.